Semir has been working in Infobip for the last 5 years, and his main focus in Infobip is improving the continuous localization process. As many of you may know, Infobip is a global communications platform for businesses and developers. And I think you had kind of a challenge, right? So you decided to redefine the way how you collaborate with vendors, both LSPs and freelancers. And in your presentation, you will tell us more how you managed to improve it and build like real continuous localization process, right?
Exactly. You explained it perfectly.
Good. So we'll be having questions after the presentation, and there will be a book as a gift. So guys, ask your questions in chat, vote for questions. We will get back to them after Samir's presentation. You're welcome, Semir.
Okay, thank you, Max. Hi, everybody. Again, I hope you hear me. I was a bit sick the last few days. Now I'm fine, but I'll apologize for the nasal quality of my voice, at least more than usual. Anyway, without any further ado, let me tell you about the story we had. I spoke a year ago here at Smartcat conference lot from home, and we did quite a lot in the last year. So let me tell you how that went and the conclusions we found. We actually had to change the setup because to accommodate to the needs of continuous localization, but the true one. I'll tell you why and why it actually matters to listen. This presentation should be useful for the businesses, companies, cloud companies like ours, but also the LSPs and the freelance translators. So let's dive in. So here, just a quick agenda. We'll talk about how LSPs/translation companies are a bottleneck, actually. For software clients, I would say that yes, they are the bottleneck. More on that a bit later. So we'll also mention how Agile applies to localization too. For those of you not familiar with Agile, I'll try to briefly explain it too. And it applies more than one would think. The translation chain should consequently be reshuffled, and we did a low risk, actually high gain experiment. I'm going to tell you more details about it, and I'm going to share some lessons learned, which can be summed up to the human triangle, like 3 components, all human, are key for localization, but technology is there to facilitate. So indispensable, but only to facilitate in our experience. So this is the summary of the whole presentation, but I really do invite you to stay for the next 30 minutes. It should be some fresh food for thought. So for all of you who disagreed to the first sentence where I said that LSPs are a bottleneck to the software translation, software development process, here are a couple of possibilities that you get if you change how LSP is positioned within the continuous localization process. I'm not saying left out, because it's not left out, and it most probably shouldn't be, but it should be repositioned. So if we imagine a scenario where LSP is repositioned, I will tell you what that means. You could get these benefits. So for businesses, product releases will never wait. So when they are ready from the code and marketing perspective, they can be released. No need to wait for translation. For translators, this setup would mean that they get paid better, quickly, and in full. No deductions from the banks and the accompanying fees. For LSPs here, this would also mean a change, and a positive change. In this respect, no deadlines and no administrative work, actually. So the list doesn't end here. Here we have another set of items. Again, for businesses, language errors in true continuous localization can actually be fixed instantly if you set the process to be truly continuous. Literally instantly, be it the source language, usually English, or the translations, they can be fixed with the proper setup within 10 minutes. For translators, continuous localization without an LSP in between could allow them to have the clear meaning to every segment. For those that they need, they can easily ask for this feedback. And for LSPs, again, this reshuffled model will actually mean a steady monthly income for them. It's guaranteed. Think about it as a retainer, but if there's more work, of course, that the income rises. So this, what I just said, is not not just a vision. It's actually a real project that had these outcomes. You remember the experiment we did. It lasted for 3 months. It's been concluded right about these days. So these are the outcomes. I'll tell you more about the actual numbers at the end. But before we begin, a few disclaimers. This is not about medical, automotive, legal, and translation. I've been in this industry really myself for a long time, and I know the consequences of someone's life or legal responsibility for some non-standard processes. So this does not really apply there. Some components may be, but not probably the whole picture. But some good points could also be taken from what we observed. What I'm going to talk about is focused on software product, UI mostly. So for the SaaS companies, software as a service. It can also be applicable to marketing too, with some adjustments. I believe Igor from Smartcat will talk about this kind of things later. So make sure you listen to that, because I have a sense what he's going to talk about. Anyway, the continuous localization may apply to marketing too, although this project should be more copywriting process, not actual translation. So if I said software product UI, software as a service, you might think it sounds too narrow or it's a niche market, but actually that refers to the largest companies of today. Most of them, if not all of them, are in the software side, of course, are software as a service. That's a market size of approximately $158 billion. Plus, there's one thing about the future. Software is eating the world. It's actually a famous quote by the investor, Mark Andreessen, done 10 years ago, and who is interested in these kind of topics. I really recommend that you read this article. It's not that long. It's available on the internet. So in this future, what's going to be different? What already is different between the new software that's created today versus the old ways? Actually, this graph. I will not bother you with some technicalities or graphs or diagrams, just like the last time I didn't. But I'm going to tell you about the basics. And software today is done in an agile way. The most successful companies are agile. It's not a fluff, it's difficult to implement, but it shows tremendous benefits. This means that teams, developments, teams, and the company really thinks about what to deliver in the next 3 weeks based on the feedback they just received. So it's kind of quick iterations and quick reactions to the market, to the users, to the problems. You know, that's how companies adapted to COVID quickly, because of this kind of a process. And this means that releases or new stuff is released by these kind of companies every 2 weeks, for example, or even earlier. Some release it every day. This is radically different from what we knew to be before. For example, in Microsoft Office, the updates went every 2 years. So Office 2007 and you had 2010. That was all done in a waterfall process. So your requirements, then you design, implement, and somewhere here you have the localization. There was time to do the translation and review and all sorts of quality checks, which were of course necessary, because once it's out, it will not be updated until the next 2 years. This is not the same with Agile. Agile can fix it in 10 days if something is wrong, in 2 days, or in our case, in 10 minutes. I'm talking about the UI here, of course, the translation. So that's the huge difference. So please bear in mind this difference between Agile and this waterfall, where one step cannot start before the previous one is done, and then it's all like a little train. This is a nice image I used the last time. I'm going to use it right now. This is how it really looks to be on the software company side these days. You're in a suit, all good, all fancy, but actually you're going uphill constantly. The wings are on fire, just to be fast enough for the market, to meet the needs of your users, and for those, of course, who have investors to meet their targets. So it's not just the whole company. Every little team within the company faces the same problem. And this means that this matters for localization, because each of these teams is contributing, creating software on their own. So these teams release something every day. So at any time, somebody is releasing something. So we have new content literally every day. And this is where we already get to the bottleneck. So we have, for example, I think we have our products currently have 95,000 words. That's just the UI. I'm not talking about the marketing, I'm not talking about product documentation, just the UI. So for example, today, if we have 120 words, we need it into 11 languages. That's what we currently support. And we typically need is 48 hours. Of course, this refers to the smaller word count. If the word count is larger, of course, it changes. when we need something like this, and any company that needs something like this today, most likely will face three problems: minimum fees by LSPs, deadline will be difficult to meet, and the quality will often be compromised. That's how it's on the client perspective, really. It turns out even if you have continuous localization, with traditional setup of LSPs, you will end up with semi-continuous localization. That's what happened to us. So it is continuous, but it's semi-continuous towards what it could really be, because quality, speed, and communication is really severely throttled. Sorry. Now, pardon me. I am aware of the other side of the thing. So let's not. I can now focus on the other perspective. Why the client got those impressions that I showed on the previous slide. There is a good reason for it, and I'm actually aware of it. So if we send 120 words a day to any LSP, especially MLVs, they will have to do all of this. Take a look and take good care of this list. Clarify requirements. Contact up to 11 different vendors. If they have some mutual, for some languages, fine, but up to 11 different vendors. Confirm availability with them or directly for 22 translators, and find replacements for those who are not available or not responsive in such a quick time. Then they have to oversee the progress. They have to answer the questions or solve issues, then verify the completion, and then deliver translations if they have to do it manually. And then at the end, they have to invoice the client and pay vendors. So no wonder there are minimum fees that I mentioned, because you have to put a minimum fee to do this for such a small number of words. So I'm really aware of it. Communication is delayed. Of course, you see the chain, and the quality improvements also get lost or are difficult to put through all of this chain. So that's just how it is. But that's how it is with the current process. That's my opinion. The process on the LSP side is like that. And I think all of what I just said is basically inevitable as long as the process is like that. Why I'm coming back again to this image. This is the difference. We are running the Agile stuff. We deploy things every day or create new code. The agencies by default have to operate in waterfall way. They have to, they're forced. Of course, it used to be like that always, but now it's not possible to change it because of their constraints. So we have this kind of a situation. Nobody's the villain here. So I really want to make it clear. I'm really aware of both perspectives. I've worked at LSPs myself and also as a freelance translator during my career. So I understand the issues here. But this is what we get. This here is what we get. Clients pushing one way, agencies have to push the other way. And localization is somewhere in the middle, stretched between the two. So this is the example of today. What about tomorrow? For example, we had 120 words today. Tomorrow we'll have 2,000 words. Wednesday, 0 words. Thursday, 390. Just random numbers, until basically forever, until we exist or we have UI, we're going to need this. So we'll be dependent on a fresh supply of translations and everything into 11 plus languages. And this grows really, at least a few languages a year. So take a look at the situation now. We have no other option but to remain agile because of business and how software development works. Well, LSPs here are limited basically by their vendors and technology. And some LSPs have an internal structure that prevents them to be adjust to this principle, but they're mostly limited by their vendors. So the end results are that LSPs do become the bottleneck as a consequence, because they have a whole change that has to be crammed into the small windows of Agile. Tech giants integrated several MLVs, as we all know, into their processes, like direct integration, very tight control of the processes, and very, very strict conditions of the correlation. But the question is, what about the other 99% of companies, including us, with less than 20 locales? I just put a random number, but I would say this is 99% of software companies. What about us? There's not yet $1 million contract that would make any MLV change everything to fit in, but actually it's a huge opportunity, because today we are a unicorn, we are. Tomorrow, who knows? So that's the kind of, there are a lot of rising stars, let's put it that way, and they cannot be tackled until they become really, really, really big. So what the answer is, well, if you know that the guy in the background image, he loves to use the saying, "He who dares wins." I would say he who avoids the waterfall wins. So if you want to ask me again, if I want to avoid LSPs, no. because they possess vast experience. Do it yourself, like home version, requires even more automation, but process must be faster. And our customers need that. It's not just about us. It's actually the market. We need to do it because of our customers to be fast. So where to start then? I'm going to tell you about the brainstorming that we did during this year. So since our last presentation, for example, and I'll give you a non-messy summary because no brainstorming is nice and polished and clean to follow. I'm going to give you the polished version just to be efficient here. So we sat down to think about where the problem does actually originate. And of course, it originates in the Agile development process because that's what changed. And that's not going away soon because it's proving to be valuable and it's just going to be more and more used, maybe replaced with something better soon or in the future, but it's certainly the best we have right now. So it's not going away any soon. So then the question is, if this is where the problem starts, should the localization process become more agile too? Many people have asked themselves this, and many of them have concluded that yes. For agile companies, especially or those that are not really small, then they should become agile too. So the question is, how do we break down the waterfall? Is it possible? The Agile Manifesto did that in 2001. That's a document. These guys, actually, I think this is their real image from 2001. This is a group of software developers that actually contradicted the waterfall development that used to be dominating, and they proposed the Agile Manifesto in 2001 to be to do software differently and to break the waterfall because waterfall is slow and doesn't serve the users, but also the companies in the long run. So they suggested Agile Manifesto in 2001, and right now in 2021, I think we can say that it has really caught on. So it revolutionized software development 20 years ago, and it's still valid more than ever. So it could also give us ideas too. So we read it and reread it carefully, reread it. Basically, we all knew about it, and we stopped right there because we found great inspiration. But I mean this. Great inspiration in the 12 Agile Manifesto principles, even for localization. Literally, with just few adjustments, it gave us a full guide on how to make the localization agile too. We just added a few localization words into the original principles, and it actually already made sense. We didn't have to reinvent the wheel at all. Just added a few words, in some cases, not even one word. The text will be sent to you. I cannot go through all 12 of them. I'll just go through the conclusions, but Kate will send it to you. That's at least the plan. So you'll be able to see exactly where we started from. I'll show just one example. So the summary, what follows is the continuous localization guidelines based on the adjusted manifesto principles. So let me show the example of one Agile manifesto principle. Everything that's in white is actually part of the original manifesto. So business people, developers must work together daily throughout projects. That's what the Agile Manifesto proclaims. We just had to add localization team. Of course, this is for our purposes. And it really makes sense when we thought about it. This is what really makes sense because you need to be close to the business and developers to know how to adjust your localization, where to go next, how to prepare for the next languages, and all of this. So we just added these orange words, and we got one guideline. So it said, establish collaboration across the whole company, work with people. Don't operate only within the log department. I'm seeing this quite often, as you would probably know. So let's go to the 12 guidelines, and Kate will send you the other ones. So publish translations early and improve later. That's what that's the mantra. This means that we should not wait in the old ways for reviewed perfect translations. No, release them early and then improve later. Be ready for constant content updates. Be aware of it, be prepared, expect them. Do not require any development freezes because you're freezing the go-to-market. You're freezing the final aspect of your company. Release translations as frequently as possible. Don't prefer larger batches and slower cycle give you the waterfall type of time. No, there's simply, it's a moving train. You have to release frequent translations. This is one we saw, establish collaboration across the whole company. The fifth one is very interesting for Agile. It's actually, I think, very unused in the localization community. Rely on people, trust, and teamwork. Don't apply the command and control style through your localization department or program. It's actually thing of a teamwork and empowering people. And it's not just fluff word, it really means something. I'll go into details later. Prefer direct communication methods. Do not communicate indirectly through LSP. This is one of the biggest problems I see with LSPs in the middle, because we cannot communicate with translators if they need something quickly. Collect feedback directly or primarily from end users. That should be the measure of quality. Do not ask for feedback only from other LSPs. Yes, for the linguistic stuff, but you need the feedback about how usable your translations are to the end user, who might not care about stylistic perfection, but it needs to be understandable for them to use or enjoy your product. So us from the localization side have different perspective on what quality is compared to actual users. Set up a continuous scalable process. Don't stop the process if the localization team is not there. Continuously improve your localization tools and system. Don't use only third-party software as is, and that's it. And then do Excels in between. Automate or minimize manual work. So basically, don't rely on human project management or human involvement wherever not needed. Empower the localization team to choose how they work, and of course, be accountable for their results. Don't insist on strictly defined procedures and then just follow them blindly. And also reassess the process and plans regularly. Do not do it every few years and then just stick to the plan in between. So now what? When we've gone through these 12 principles, we figure out Agile brings a mindset change. Really, the focus is on end users, feedback, teamwork, and automation. And I would say this is pretty much everything should be reshuffled then, sorry, because things in the localization, translation chain are not containing focus on end users, feedback, teamwork, and automation. So since we figured out that we have to change a lot, but Manifesto really has a good track record. Even for Infobip, with software development, we saw that it's working. My other product that I'm handling is developed in an Agile way, and the benefits are huge. We trusted it, and we wanted to go with this, but we wanted to test it with one language. So the experiment. What do we have? We have the vision of the ideal process, sorry. We identified steps needed in the localization process, 40 of them, believe it or not, at least from our perspective. We removed the steps we do not want, 3 of them, and we then analyzed who can do each remaining step most effectively. The resources we had at disposal were LSP, of course, LSPs, freelance translators, localization product manager, meaning me, our cloud-based tool that we already purchased, and other third-party technology as necessary, plus in-house developers, very crucial thing for any continuous localization initiative. The guiding principles are simple. Calculated risks are acceptable. If in doubt, test small first. And if testing is not possible, then simply rely on Manifesto and see what happens, because we have to try if we want to change things. And always keep an open mind. So this is the localization process sliced up. I can send you maybe later the screenshot. You will have the presentation section saved, because there's a lot of here, and I'll have to go relatively quickly through them. So we'll show each item belong to the category where we put them. So LSPs are the best at knowing the realistic price range for any freelance translator. They can find them better than anybody else. Technology, if we find translators, we found technology that can actually solve the contractual part. We don't have to work on it, nor the LSP. And it's faster. We need to define the TM match grid. For example, that was a mistake in our previous experience. We need to now solve it. That's the lesson from this experiment. But it's a task. We need to interview the translators together with the LSP. We need to demo our Infobip products to the translators so they know what they're doing. I'll become generic with tech, but very specific enterprise tech, by the way. So then we test the Infobip knowledge. We paid for them, those done by translators. They translate the glossary. We validate the glossary. We assign a pilot file through the system. They translate this pilot file, again paid. We validate it. All simple. Confirm the prices and grids with them. We collect band details through technology. So basically fintech part of the technology. We update the source files, of course, through the technology, but we initiate it. We create the tool, then creates a project, analyzes the project, selects the correct TM and TB, dispatches the project. Translators translate, ask questions, very important thing. We clarify the context and meaning, which we really do. Then LSPs are there for tech questions because they are good with these kind of tools. Translators also report issues with source, happens a lot, more than we'd hope. The LSP could organize and run random quality checks. We also do reviews, translations in-house. They incorporate feedback, and then the tool can check for critical errors. And then this is all simple later. Deliver translation, calculate translation costs, create payment jobs. For us, this is all technology. We don't have to do it. We pay translators through technology, pay the bank fees for the translators through technology, pay the actual TMS, and the LSPs are there to replace translators if needed or if unavailable, collect feedback and invoices. And at the end, we pay the LSP. 40 steps. We will not perform free translations. We will not push for lower prices, just the long term that translators are comfortable with, because we want to invest in a long-term team. And we do not perform full reviews in the same tool as we do the translation. So this would make sense for Infobip because we are more involved and we own all of it. Translators get better paid, steady source of work, and part of a bigger team, not isolated somewhere and nobody knows that they're working on with a company. And technology does what is best. What about the LSPs? They handled most of the steps. Now their focus is moved to freelancer pools. But they are valuable consultants. And here they're incentivized, they would be incentivized to work in our benefit, not against as it's currently, if you think about it. And they could serve many clients with this model, could serve larger clients and compete with bigger LSPs because their scope is smaller. And they could provide other services to us because they're already contracted. So copywriting, voiceover, that kind of stuff that's outside of the scope. But this is an assumption that must be proven. So I would suggest that many of you would say, come on, Semir, no LSP would bother with that. And I would say yes. But we needed only one willing to experiment. And the opportunity came even before we were ready to move. We were kind of finalizing it. There was a chat, it took a different turn with an LSP CEO. I mentioned this and they wanted in the experiment. Partnership, we struck partnership with Beluga. This is the LSP. Most of you know the CEO, Jan Hendricks. So hi, Jan, if you're seeing everybody at Beluga. We sat down and analyzed the task in more detail, split between what they do, what we do, and where we overlap somewhere because they are nitty-gritty and not details. And we set up the pricing and possible business model separate from what they do now. So current budget as a reference, we just deducted the average freelancer fees, and whatever was left, we converted it actually to a stable monthly fee based on the word count. But if there's really, small word count, we have a certain limit that we do not pay below, like a retainer stuff. Or if there's no work, they still get this retainer. And we started with Sweden. Swedish because we had this translation, but it was not in good shape. So we got our redefined triangle. Client, LSP, and translators, not in a waterfall, but talking to each other in circle because we really did talk about like this. Everything was underpinned by technology. That's why the fourth arm, but it's actually a triangle. So the numbers, instead of a summary, I'm close to finishing it. Maybe I'll be almost on time. So instead of summary, I prefer numbers, easier to digest. For the LSP, this is our observation and confirmed by them. So for Swedish, we had the number of high-quality candidates sourced 2 out of 20 shortlisted. That's what they did. It takes time. Number of employees overseeing the process once it kicked off, less than 5% of the time, because they're overseeing the problems, not the process, the project, the delivery, the quality, nothing. Just if there are glitches with the freelancers and they need assistance with tech. Their margin was approximately 20% of their project fee. So for approximately 10 times less work, there's maybe, 50% less fee, 2 times less fee, something like that. So, but at least 10 times less work. I will not go into numbers. I do not know about their business model in the background. But anyway, you can do the math approximately yourself. We packaged as a monthly fee. So the number of times they were involved in quality-related discussions and blamed for something, 0. That's on translators. Number of files and quotes that they dispatched, around 0. Number of invoices that they created once a month to us. Now translators. Number of questions that they asked about source, 5 a day, just for one language. That's an excellent metric for us. We used to receive that amount of questions in a month with 10 languages. So you see the difference. Number of questions that were answered, all of them, within 24 hours. The number of days they waited for payment from the day they started working on a file, it's around 20 days. Amount of money lost in bank flow, euros or USD, you should recover it because it's, like I said, it's teamwork and they have specific prices. That's what they will get paid. And then Infobip for the businesses among us. The total time releases waited for translation, 0 minutes. Time needed to fix language errors, translations or source, automatically by midnight or immediately if it's critical. Development resources needed, 1 full-time engineer in the last year. 30% of my work week, 40%, because I have another product at Infobip. The localization budget was the same as before, with an LSP with 2 standard. Minimum fees paid 0. So in our conclusion is experiment was predominantly successful. So the lessons learned, the last slide, is for software businesses. The LSPs and translators can take anything from this as it could be useful to them, but the software businesses should really think about retaining the ownership of your localization process. It's your content. It's not your translation. It's your content, just like English is, if English is your major language. Remember that translation is a human collaboration, not a faceless chain, and reap the benefits from that. Set expectations early and trust people to do what they know to do and to demonstrate their expertise. Give them room and financial incentive through the rates to learn about yourself and ask questions, really unleash the potential. And run small checks, of course, you have to do it, and experiments often for all of us to improve. So that's it. I hope I'm on time. Sorry, Max, if I went over it. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Here are my contact details, or just send me an invitation over LinkedIn. Thank you.
Samir, it's a great timing. Thank you very much. We actually thought that because the presentation is so insightful and informative, you won't have time to answer the questions, but we have at least 8 minutes. And I think your speaking speed helped a lot.
Thank you very much. You were able to understand what
I was listening. I was supposed to do something at the background, but I can't stop listening and look at your slides. So okay. For sure, but I would like to. Yeah, I would like to rewatch it. Thankfully, we have the recording, and other people can also see it. Hot topic. We have 9 questions. Let's start with those who have some votes. Let me help you to read them. Roa Krimi Chora, I'm sorry if I pronounced it wrongly, asking you, what are some methods to ask for feedback from users?
Great question, really great question. It's a technical problem. You can, of course, interview users, but that's clunky and that's not it. We have been right now investigating the ways to collect feedback more systematically. Right now, we get it from our users across the world because Infobip has 3,000 employees in 70 countries. So we have our internal users across the world who give us feedback. That's not the real users, as we would say, but when they talk to them because they're in sales, pre-sales process. We are now improving, trying to add and suggest improvements, really, forms for the translations too, just to make it easier for them and be available there to easily report any suggestion, because people do report suggestion for improvements of translation. That's really curious and lovely. So we want to take full advantage of it because we trust also in their perspective of quality and what's blocking them.
Okay, good. Just to remind you, try to rate those questions because we'll need to choose the winner. I hope we'll be able to. We keep having new questions, I think. Okay, the second one from Ada Indarta. From my understanding, the idea is to bring LSP closer into the client organization and up in the process for Agile to work. But still, due to the fact that LSP translator is external party, there will always be a gap between the LSP translator and the other internal teams in the company. Any suggestions on how to solve this issue?
In this sense, no. Look, we're a company, and then everybody else is external, of course. But we wanted to bring both translators from a separate side and LSPs from a separate side to be as close as possible, like on the edge of our company, to be like an external team, of course, as much as we can. This means that translators are completely, basically unrelated to the LSP because we pay them, we sign the contract with them, we answer their questions. LSPs are there to oversee the quality, find and source any review, interview them together with us. So basically, the LSP is there an independent party that's knowledgeable about translation and localization that can give us or maybe instruct us to maybe pay attention to some improvements or some problems. But they are really separate entities there. That's why I put it like 2 items and we are the third. They're not part of the same equation anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Let's move next. Nestor Solano is asking, from the project manager perspective, how can we include localization into companies' agile processes?
Very difficult. This is a top-down decision. For us at Infobip, the change was possible because we put translation within product development. So I'm a product manager, and my vertically is CPO. I went to the CPO with all of this. And it's product, not in English, but in other languages, still the product. Still affects our finances and everything. So it's a matter of business and strategy. So when you put it as a strategic thing, then actually it can blend in with engineering and product within the Agile. Outside of it as a separate localization team, it's very difficult to change everything because you will need to be closely intertwined with the actual development process. That's why I would suggest the first step to continuous localization to any company, allocate at least half of the time of product manager and at least one developer. Without it, you cannot really go far because it's impossible. They'll both tell you how to do it and also have some, voting power already to push these issues on the company's agenda.
Good, thank you. Another question from Nadia. This one got 4 votes. You mentioned translators identifying source text issues. How do you fix those as part of the continuous localization process? Is there a source QA step built into the workflow before translation?
We do, of course. I mean, there's a QA on the testing side, and of course, but the QA in software usually is focused on functional problems, on serious issues. A typo here or there may slip. Automated tests for quality, because we have a huge product, it's enterprise. So really occasional typos can slip. We call it developer English. Some error message, nobody sees them. You cannot even reproduce it. So that's kind of stuff we see source errors, and that's what we see through the TMS. Translators see, and then they say, hey, you have a typo here in the source. And with us, with continuous localization, we managed to create a language for the source too. So we updated it as if it was translation. So we were able to avoid developers changing it. We translate it through the TMS and send it to them later, but we show it on the production immediately. That's the thing of continuous translation. We show things from the TMS directly to the users. It doesn't go to the developers. That's what allows, that's the decomposed translation. For those of you who are technical here, that's what allows it to be really continuous. You cannot have true continuous localization if you have to wait the developer to change one typo in English source for 7 days, or God forbid in your translation and wait for 7 days. No, you have to be very quick. We do it in 10 minutes if we want, both source and translations.
Wonderful. Question from Mario Chavez, USA. Semir, how do you get buy-in from upper management for continuous agile as presented there? Sorry, let me probably let this person to ask it directly, because it's this, I think, the 3rd time someone wants to ask it directly. So let's give a chance to Mario.
Hi, Mario.
Kate, can you help with this?
Yes, just a second.
Okay, good. Yeah. Really hot topic. While we wait for Mario to join, Semir, what do you think if we will continue this in maybe in Smartcat LinkedIn? So we make a post, and then attendees can keep asking questions, and you can communicate with them, because we still have, I think, 5 or 6 questions, and they keep coming. And all of them are interesting. I think it makes sense to continue this and then choose the winner. Okay?
Sure. Count on me. No problem. I'll be happy.
Hello, Mario.
Hi, Mario.
A pleasure, a privilege to be part of this. Thank you. I've been enjoying your presentation, Semir, because it touches on many things that I'm living through with my software company. Well, it's not mine, it's my employer. And that you kind of have answered, partly answered my question, like how to get buy-in when you're invisible. You answered that, well, you need to talk to the product manager and at least one of the developers involved in the process, otherwise it's impossible. Because the decisions have to be top down. Did I get that correctly?
Yeah, to us, it really happened. Like I said, I was already in as a product manager. So we did what a lot of companies are starting to do now, allocate localization to product managers to lead the technical part. Of course, you need localization people to do this together. I just happened to have both sides, so I did it myself. Anyway, I was in product already, and the natural partner for me was the product management, because they decide what gets built, what gets localized, and even with the business, where to expand next. So if you're not part of product, actually that helps you, because I had to have, let's say, a sponsor, in this case, a CPO and a few directors from my vertical that were touching this initiative. So without sponsorship and top management like support, it's difficult to push this through. because it's tough to do it. It takes a while. If you have that kind of support, it's doable. But just from your side, you have to have allies, and like I said, product manager and developer also next to localization people to speak all the languages that business and top management speaks. I'm not talking about the real locale, the languages, actually the numbers, the technical language, and the business language. That often lacks. We in the localization side often lack this. The technical and the business, I want to say language, but you understand what I mean.
The challenges that I'm facing, that my manager is very supportive, but she's the technical writing manager, and the thing is that our main boss is the product manager in engineering. So, and he's kind of the bottleneck in terms of, okay, this is the information I can give you, I choose to give you, and it's not enough. It's basically,
show this presentation to them and ask for some product management time, not a full one, but 30-40%, and let someone from the localization team, in this case you, closely work with them, and things can change within a few months, not within a day or two or a week. Okay, any more questions, Max?
Samir, Mario, very sorry for interrupting your discussion.
No, go ahead. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we have to move forward, and Samir, as discussed, so we will move these questions into LinkedIn, and we'll ask you to answer them and then choose the winner, and we will announce it there in LinkedIn. Thank you very much for a wonderful, amazing presentation and joining us again. Talk to you later.